So, this all started with a Craigslist ad. I'm a failed horror writer. Or maybe just a failed writer. My last book didn't sell, my publisher ghosted me, and the only thing haunting me was my student loans. I needed a job fast. I thought, hey, a graveyard at night? Sounds like the kind of place horror begins, right? The pay was good, actually for this area, really good. And heck, I might get some inspiration for a new story. I didn't know how right I was. I got there just before sunset. The cemetery sat on a hill like it had grown out of the earth. Everything looked dead, even the grass, even the wind. The office door creaked open before I knocked, and there he was, the day caretaker. He didn't speak right away, just stared at me with pale, watery eyes like he was measuring me for a casket. He looked wrong, not sick, just like he didn't blink unless he remembered to. His skin had this gray, waxy tone, like old candles that had melted and hardened again. He finally said in this dry, papery voice, "You're the writer." I told him I used to be. He didn't laugh, just nodded like that was the right answer. Then he held out a key ring and this folded sheet of paper. Yellowed, edges curled, looked like it had been passed down forever. Follow what's written. You'll see sunrise. I unfolded it. 10 rules, no explanation. And then, this part really got to me. He grabbed my wrist, cold fingers, bone thin. He leaned in and said, "You must lock the office. You must carry the salt. And whatever you do, don't talk to Lester." Then he shuffled out into the fading daylight, never looked back, didn't say goodbye, just vanished around a corner, like the graveyard swallowed him. After a few moments, I gave up on thinking about how fast he disappeared and looked down at my hands holding a key ring and the folded piece of paper. I put the keys in my pocket and unfolded the paper. The paper was old with many creases in it, like it was written long ago and folded and opened many times. I started to read the list. Do not leave the cemetery before 7 a.m. When making your rounds, always carry a box of salt with you. If the grave bells all start ringing, pour a salt circle and stay inside it. If the gargoyles appear to move, don't investigate, walk away. If you encounter Lester, never trust what he says. He always lies. If you did listen to Lester or he gets angry, seek out Bethany. Stay away from the oak tree at midnight. Check the schedule to see if a new grave is to be dug that following day. If so, get the tools out. Always lock the security office when leaving. Do not leave the cemetery before 7 a.m. Weird that rule number 1 is on there twice, right? I thought it was just some senile mistake. The security office looked like it hadn't changed in decades, like it had been waiting for me, untouched, collecting dust in the corner of the world. There was a withered old wooden desk pushed against the far wall, its surface warped with age and stained with long-forgotten coffee. A brass nameplate sat on the corner, but the name had been scratched out, deeply. The leather chair beside it was cracked and faded, the kind of seat that deflated with a sigh when you sank into it, as if it remembered every tired soul who sat there before you. The room smelled like mold, old paper, and something metallic. Not blood exactly, but close. A rickety shelf stood near the desk, sagging under the weight of old books. Thick, cloth-bound things, with titles too faded to read. One had a lock on it, no key in sight. And beside it, a dented gray cabinet, the kind you'd expect to find files in. I opened it, expecting maybe flashlights, maybe tools. Instead, salt. I thought, how much salt does one man need? Enough to season a city, apparently. Each box had a label in handwriting that didn't quite look human. Jagged cursive. Some boxes were dated decades ago. One was labeled Backup Lester Incident. I laughed nervously, told myself it was just some weird local tradition, superstition. Old people get stuck on rituals, right? I tried to settle in, sat in the chair. It groaned under my weight like it didn't approve of me. Watched the monitors. Nothing moved, except the tree, the oak in the middle. The wind was still, but the branches twitched. 11 o'clock. I stepped out into the night, salt in one hand, flashlight in the other. And for a while, it was peaceful. The leaves rustled gently in the trees. A short, playful breeze passed through the headstones, brushing my jacket like a whispered hello. Crickets chirped all around me in lazy rhythm. And from somewhere near the far edge, by the pond, I could hear frogs singing. It was nice, like the world hadn't quite caught on to how wrong this place really was. I thought maybe I'd overhyped the weirdness, that maybe the caretaker was just old and superstitious. I did my rounds, walked the perimeter, nothing strange, just shadows and stone. I passed the row of mausoleums, waved at a gargoyle, laughed at myself. Eventually, I found myself in the center of the cemetery, near that massive oak tree. I stopped, just stood there for a moment, soaking it all in. Then, I noticed something. The crickets had stopped, the frogs had gone silent, like the night had sucked in a deep breath and didn't want to let it go. Just quiet now, except for one thing. A low, aching groan drifted across the still air. It came from the oak. Just the wind, I told myself. Trees creak. It's natural. Then from the corner of my eye, I saw it. The tree. It had moved. Closer. Only by a few feet, but it was closer, I was sure of it. I turned fully toward it, focused. My brain fought with my eyes. I told myself it was a trick, shadows, angles. Maybe I just hadn't noticed how big it really was. But then I turned to walk away. And that's when I heard it again. Louder, deeper, like wood grinding against bone. I spun around. The branches had turned, no doubt this time. Every single limb stretched toward me, not outward, toward me, like it was reaching, like it had noticed me. And that's when I remembered the list. Rule 7. Stay away from the large oak tree in the middle of the cemetery at midnight. I glanced at my watch. 11:57 p.m. I let out a dry laugh. Too close for comfort, but my stomach was already tightening. My chest was heavy. That part of your brain that doesn't think in words, it was screaming at me to leave. I didn't run, didn't want to, but I started backing away, slowly. I kept my eyes on it the whole time, like a kid watching a spider in the dark. Only once I was a good 30 yards away, I turned, and I walked. Fast. I approached the security building and fumbled with the keys. I unlocked it, stepped inside, and locked it again behind me. Tight. And I didn't open the curtains. Even though the room smelled old and musty, it felt safe. 1 o'clock came slow. The kind of hour that feels more like a question than a time. I stepped out again, salt in hand, flashlight beam cutting through the dark like it didn't want to. This time, I stuck to the perimeter. The outer edge of the cemetery was bordered by a tall iron fence, its bars narrow and blackened with time. Some of them bent at strange angles, like something had tried to force its way in or out. Every few yards, there was a stone pillar, and perched on each one was a gargoyle, some hunched, some crouched, all silent, all still, or so I thought. I passed one particularly large gargoyle, wings tucked close to its sides, mouth open in a silent scream. Its eyes were just pits, emptiness. I took 5 paces past it, just 5. Then I turned around, suddenly. The pillar was empty. It took me a second to register it. Then I thought, maybe I counted wrong. Maybe it was the wrong pillar. But my gut was cold. That's when I heard it. A sound. Faint, far off, like rock, dragging on rock. Not loud, but wrong. A sound that shouldn't move. I spun toward it. Nothing there. Just rows of headstones and darkness pressing in between them like wet cloth. I held my breath, took a few more steps down the path, then I turned again, and the gargoyle was back. I didn't hear it land, didn't see it move. It was just there again, exactly the way it was. But now it felt like it was watching me. I didn't linger. I turned, and this time, I didn't look back. Not once. I followed the fence all the way around until I was back at the gate, then made my way to the office. No distractions, no second glances. Because in this place, the more you look at something, the more it looks back. As I was sitting in the office, I looked at the schedule. There was a note about a new grave being dug for tomorrow. I will have to remember to get the tools ready before I leave. With nothing else to do but wait for my next round, I grabbed a dusty old book and glanced through a few pages, trying to take my mind off of this feeling that wouldn't go away. At 3 a.m., I stepped outside again, flashlight in one hand, salt in the other. My boots crunched over dry gravel as I walked the familiar path. This time, I headed back toward the center of the cemetery. It was well past midnight. Rule number 7 said to stay away from the oak at midnight, which meant now it was safe. Right? That's what I told myself. Then I heard something. A bell. Just one. Faint. Distant. Like a tea bell shaking in the wind. Then another. Then 3. Then they were everywhere. Small bells on headstones began twitching, then ringing furiously. Dozens. Clanging in a sick harmony. The hairs on the back of my neck would have popped off and ran for the hills if they could. I spun in every direction. Nothing, not a soul in sight. But I was surrounded by the metallic chorus of the dead. I ripped the top off the salt box, poured a full circle around myself like my life depended on it. Because it did. The moment the circle was closed, the bells stopped, all of them. The silence that followed was deafening. That's when I heard it. Footsteps, not shuffling, not dragging, walking. Confident, clean, like polished shoes on marble. Out of the dark, a man stepped into view. He looked like a banker, or a funeral director, or both. Wonderful evening, isn't it? I couldn't speak, could barely breathe, just stood, frozen, inside my little salt ring, blinking at him like my brain had shut down and refused to reboot. He glanced at the ground, saw the salt, and sneered. "You're the guard for these premises, correct? I found something you should see, please, follow me." The man gestures calmly into the dark, turns and walks a few paces, stops. I didn't move, he waited. The moment stretched, too long. Then he spun around. His movement is inhumanly fast, arms outstretched, his face twisted, warped, bone under too tight skin, eyes too wide, teeth not right at all. "Come!" A sound ripped from his throat, a scream, piercing, unnatural. I fell backward from the shock, landing hard, my hands behind me in the dirt, my fingers scraped the ground, and that's when I realized I'd broken the salt circle. Panic exploded in my chest. My body moved before my thoughts could. I was running, sprinting like my soul was on fire. But I wasn't headed toward the front. I was running the wrong way, away from the security building. His laugh followed me, so did the footsteps. Brisk, pacing me, getting closer. That awful, echoing click of leather shoes. I could feel him behind me, could almost feel breath on my neck. Time slowed, sound warped, the whole world narrowed. Then I saw it out of the corner of my eye. A light. I didn't think, just changed direction and sprinted toward it. As I got closer, I saw her, a woman, sitting on a bench beneath a crooked lamppost, calmly reading a book like it was a Tuesday morning in the park. She looked up as I stumbled to a halt in front of her, gasping like a dying fish. Our eyes locked. I tried to speak, to warn her, but when I turned around, nothing. No footsteps, no laughter, no Lester, just shadows. She smiled at me. A gentle, understanding smile. Then she patted the space on the bench beside her. I didn't think, I just sat. And in that moment, the quiet returned. But from somewhere behind the tombs, I heard it. A hiss, then a clicking sound, like someone snapping their tongue. Over and over, like they were disappointed. Time passed. I don't know how long I sat there on that bench beside her. Bethany, I assumed, but I eventually caught my breath. My heart slowed. My head cleared just enough to remember I was still alive. She hadn't said a word. The soft golden light of the lamppost pools gently around the bench. Bethany sits with her legs crossed, flipping a page slowly. She just sat there, reading, calm, completely unfazed by what had chased me through the dark. Every now and then she'd glance over at me. That smile, it didn't ask questions, it didn't judge, it just said, "You're safe. For now." Eventually, the quiet stopped feeling dangerous. The air didn't feel heavy anymore. The night no longer pressed in on me like it had before. And then, without a word, she stood. She turned to me and lifted an arm. Her finger pointed toward the front of the cemetery, toward the security office. She still didn't speak, but I heard it all the same. She was saying, "It's safe now." I stood, adjusting my clothes like I was waking from a bad dream. My knees were sore, my back ached. I looked into her eyes one more time, let out a deep breath I didn't even know I was holding, and smiled, just a little. She was seated again, back on the bench, book in hand, reading in the warm light, like I'd never been there at all. I walked the gravel path in silence, past the graves, past the pillars, past the oak, all quiet now. When I reached the security office, I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and locked it tight behind me. I dropped the flashlight on the desk and collapsed into that weathered leather chair, like it had just saved my life. And for the first time that night, I exhaled. By 6 o'clock, the sky had started to turn that soft, pale gray. Not morning exactly, but the suggestion of it. That quiet hour where the night is finally losing its grip. I stepped out of the office. The air was cold, but calm. Just like the list said, I went to the shed beside the old chapel to gather the tools for the gravedigger. Shovel, spade, gloves. The wheelbarrow had a flat tire like always. Routine. Something about it felt comforting. Or maybe just human. I lined everything up by the path like I was told, then walked back toward the office and waited. I stared at the horizon, waiting for that exact moment. 6:59. My watch ticked. 7. The old iron gate creaked open, and there he was. He walked up the path like a man who had done this 1,000 times. "I see you followed the rules and made it through. Good, good." He stepped past me into the office like it belonged to him, because it did. And with a slow, dry motion, he gestured for me to follow. He glanced over the clipboard, nodded to himself, then reached into his breast pocket, pulling out an envelope. He handed it to me without a word. I opened it and froze. More money than I'd made in 2 weeks, maybe 3, all for one night. And somehow I knew it wasn't even the maximum, just the starting rate. "I can assume you'll be returning again this evening for another round?" I did the math. It didn't take long. I nodded. How could I say no, not to that kind of money? And besides, I had enough material from this one night to write 3 books. Imagine what I could get from a second or a third. That first night changed everything. I came looking for a paycheck and maybe some twisted inspiration. What I found was something ancient, something patient, something that watched. But I made it out. I followed the rules, and they worked. 10 commandments in black ink. They saved my life. But before I left that morning, I noticed something I hadn't the night before. A fresh sheet of paper beside the original list. Same handwriting, same texture, but with a different title. Additional Protocols, Night 2. 11. Do not look at your reflection after 2:30 a.m. The rules don't stay the same because the night doesn't stay the same. And I have a feeling I haven't met everything that lives out there yet, not even close. I'll be back tonight, same job, new rules, and whatever comes with them. This isn't just a cemetery, it's a stage. And I think the real show is only just beginning. Like the video if you'd break any of those rules. Comment which rule creeped you out most. Subscribe for more real-time horror. The graveyard's always hiring.